Today, I've got my friend Sharon Taylor with me, and this is going to be fun because I think I probably did the most research I have done so far, and I'm not sure if I like the research-based podcast where I've got all sorts of bits of information, or if I like it off the cuff. And so today we're going to find out which one I like. I still like the song. I don't know if it's too jazzy for a talk thing, but I like it.
I don't mind it at all. It just kind of sets the mood. It's like, hey, let's all be upbeat and ready to like jive. It's very like rock and roll too, so I like that.
It is, and so they've got a million of these things out on the interwebs, and artists go and they put them on sites, and then you pay a royalty fee for them. For some reason, YouTube just thinks I'm stealing this every single time. And every video, I got to go back and I have to show, a letter from the artist, a letter from, that I purchased and pay for it. And then, 2 days later, they're like, okay, yeah, you're good. But nobody else has a problem with it. But
it's so annoying. You're probably still going to get notifications like down the road to be like, this video you created 6 months ago is not licensed sound, and like
and
I don't know how that works, but
so far YouTube's the only one that's been having issues with it. And I like I said, I did everything I was supposed to do, contacted the artist. I want everybody to get their fair credit, and I want to be above board, and YouTube hates it. They'll still play it, but what it does is it knocks you off of being monetized. Now, clearly I'm not doing this for it being monetized. I just am doing it. But anyway, so I have Sharon Taylor with me today. Aside from a vague recollection, I'm not entirely sure. I know when we met, and it was at a convention in Chicago, maybe 10 years ago. Maybe more.
maybe more. Yeah.
Maybe
I
more.
think it was more than that.
Maybe more. And the reason why I say maybe more, because I don't know, my boy Liam, you see him on Instagram, he turns 10 this year, and I don't know how that happened. So in my mind, I'm like, oh, is this before Liam or after Liam? I know I met you before Liam, and so it's just a vague number before then.
Right. It's like the history books all are like BC after BC, or like AD BC, and you've got like BL before Liam, AL after Liam.
So you are one of my before Liam friends.
Okay.
And I hadn't met you in person before then or since then, and I think it was just the joys of social media that you connect with people, and it has been so fun just connecting with you randomly over the last however many years.
Well, I remember saying goodbye to you in the parking lot the day everybody was packing up. Do you remember that?
And you've said that before, and this is awful because I'm supposed to remember. I remember being so completely exhausted but I did. I think there was if I remember right, there was a big group of us out there. I think big group might be relative. And so, yeah, you're saying goodbye to everybody. It was a fun weekend and have a good time. And that was that. I enjoyed, I've got a bunch of stuff, so maybe this is just hopping around. Did you enjoy going to those, those type of that atmosphere of where it's like, hey, I did a project for a while. It was a part of my life for this amount of time, and now it's being aired for this amount of time, and you all want to see me. Was that something you liked doing?
I don't mind it, but because my character was a secondary character in the whole plot and scheme of the whole show, I don't feel like I had as much to contribute as much as like the actors that were the lead characters did. But I still have a great time just talking to people and having an adventure and going to a different city and
and
I
just
don't
see
mind
it.
that at all.
I,
Mhm.
so I was there working it. I've always been, a nerd from day one. I don't know, it's just my thing. My mom would watch, the original Star Trek series with her dad. And so then as I was growing up, I think she just thought, "Well, I'm gonna, continue that with my son," and so she got me into that stuff, and, um, so at first it was just something that's what was on, and, then, of course, your imagination run wild, and you start watching other things, and then I find out at some point in time, it's like, oh, they have these conventions where people get together and you get to meet the people you saw on there, hear a little bit about their stories, and you hang out with other people who liked watching that. So I liked going, but somehow, again, part of the podcast point is that I've had a random life. I don't know how I ended up volunteering. I was a volunteer that whole weekend. They said, "Yeah, you want to come, you know, sit with people, walk
I
people
know.
around."
Yeah, you were right in there with
Yeah,
everybody.
and
Organizing things, you had your lanyard, you were,
I
like,
I
on
felt
fire, yeah.
semi-important for,
You
72
were
hours.
official, very official.
Official, and
Mhm.
and that was just a neat thing. I did it for several of them, and then there's been several people that I had met there that I still to this day I haven't done it in years because, I just haven't, but I've kept some of those friendships, and so that's, for me, it was now it's less about the excitement of doing that, it's the, "Oh, look who I've met, and now we're friends," and it's, almost not even related to how we met anymore. It's just,
Right,
that we did with some folks.
right.
So, speaking of this, I would never say that you were what did you call yourself on that show? What'd you say? A
I said a
a
secondary
secondary
character.
character? I would
Yeah,
never
the ones that help drive the plot forward for all the lead cast.
so I was admittedly, I really appreciate you coming on here, and I wanted to do right by you. So I was like, "Well, I'm gonna, do a little bit of research here," and you have, I think it's 70 IMDb credits. And that just is your entire life for me. Here I am. I'm sitting in a studio in Northwest Indiana, and I think that must be an adventure. Something new all the time. Is this something that you had always wanted to do, or was this something you fell into? Um, what got you from, hey, I'm in my teens, I'm going through school, to, hey, now I'm in this huge variety of things. Um, Flaunt magazine called you, said you're a master of all roles, drama, comedy, and action. Which googling yourself is, well, we could talk about that later. How did you get to be Sharon Taylor actor?
Well, on that note, I'm so fortunate that I have a lot of range, I can play, like, the nice mom, but I could also play, like, the murdering bad guy as well as the cop that has all the exposition that moves the story forward. So in that regard, I get to do a little bit of everything. So that part's really fun, and I'm fortunate for that. But when I was first getting into acting, I was a very shy kid, like a very shy kid. And I guess I was 14 years old, and my high school drama teacher did this exercise called Famous People Now Dead. And so everyone had to choose a famous person, and they had to go to the library and do some research on that person, and then write a monologue as though they were that person and dress up as that person and then perform it for the class. And so for me, I don't know why I chose Marilyn Monroe, even though
Okay.
that's not what I look like at all. But I had the blonde wig, and I tried to wear a sexy dress, and I did a monologue as Marilyn Monroe, but I made it very kind of heartfelt about how, like, she was in love with Joe DiMaggio. I did all that. And
Yeah.
I literally felt like I became her for a moment. And that was such a freedom for being such a shy kid that it made me think, this is something I want to do. So from that point forward, I took acting classes in all the school plays, in everything. I went to university. I got my degree in theater and acting, and I've just never stopped.
That I So many questions that come out of that one. I Because as soon as you started, this is where my, I don't know if you want to call it ADD, kicked in. As soon as you said, famous, I was like, well, who would I? Who would
Yeah, I was gonna say, who
I
would you be?
yeah, that seems like a wonderful question that I should just ask people. Like,
Mhm.
dead person would you like to be?
Embody.
Does did was that now something that, so you decided you like this, you went to university, you got your degree in this. So was this something that was just supported in your upbringing as, yeah, this is what you want to do? Family, friends, your circle, your network sees that there's a talent there, and so they supported you, or were you like,
No, I was very supported, but my parents said I had to go to university. So that's why I was like, "All right, I'll go to university. I'll get a degree in theater." And so I and so my dad was like, "Okay, but you need another degree to back that up so that if you ever become a school teacher or something, you can
yeah,
have teachable subjects." So I have a degree in English and a degree in theater so
oh,
that if the acting thing didn't work out, I could go get my teaching certificate and be a high school drama teacher and English teacher. So my parents were happy with that as long as all
okay,
the bases were covered. Yeah.
okay. Um,
Mhm.
so you had mentioned that your range, and I had, like I said, I googled you, which I hadn't before. Just I hadn't, um, and I had looked. Now, when I have friends that are doing things, I want to support it. So you've been on a dozen things that I'll then watch because, like, you support your friend, and I mean, everything from comedy. The latest one was, and you had posted a picture. If anybody is out there and wants to, it's uh, Sharon T was here. Although when I read it in my head, it was twas here. Sharon twas here. So I don't
Well,
know.
that's kind of a fun thing between you and me because I do go back and forth. That was my intention when I created my
Yeah,
Instagram handle.
I was
I
like,
was like,
twas.
Sharon was here. I actually intended it to be twas because I'm a theater person, but I figure the rest of the world doesn't really get that, so that's why I was like, Sharon T was here,
And I
and
know I asked you about that years ago because in my head it always was twas. And at one point in time, I looked at it, I was like, oh no, that could be just Sharon T. Oh, then I was like, oh man, I feel goofy. But you had posted a picture recently. I'm guessing it was a promo picture, whatever you all in the industry want to call it, for I think it was Sniper Last Stand on Amazon now, and you've got an axe, I don't know what type of
yeah, Battle Axe,
battle
yeah.
axe, and I tell you what, you go from something like some Hallmark movie or some comedy thing to now this. It really is a kick-ass looking thing, and there's um, I don't know if you guys are doing a fight sequence in a like a fountain or something like that.
Yeah, an old fountain in
Yeah,
like an old medieval building kinda, mhm.
I mean, when you get when you get you audition, you get a job, we can talk about that process because I don't understand it. And you see like this scene, it's like, I'm going to have to kick ass. Is the first thing you think now, like, okay, well, I got to put the Hershey's down now because now I need to get into this battle mode here. Does it excite you? Is it daunting? Is it a little bit of both?
A little bit of both, but I have my second degree black belt in karate and kickboxing, so I actually train anyway throughout the week. So for me, I wasn't like, "Oh no, what am I gonna do?" I'm like, "Yeah, I've been training for this. Now I'm ready, and now I get to show it off." That was more that was
And
more my reaction.
And you had, and I think somewhere at some point in time in one of these interviews somewhere, to tie into that, and I think it might have been for um, a Stargate podcast, something that the producers, the directors, the people who put the thing on, they found out that you knew how to do all that stuff, and it was like, oh well, now that we have this talent here, we have to use that. Do you find that people come to you for that a lot? Again,
No, no,
these
never.
can be stupid questions, and
No, this is the weird thing, is that I will sometimes audition for things where it will say fight experience like would be an asset for this character. This character has fight scenes. This character is this like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is me. I can do all these fight scenes. I can do all these things. I'm an athletic person, and then I don't get the part, and then look and see who does, and it's some, beautiful young woman with fake breasts who gets the part and can't do any fighting at all, and they just have a stunt woman do it all anyway.
So it's
So it was like it never mattered. It was like it never actually really mattered.
because as a
Mhm.
viewer, you can always tell when I don't want to say always because they can make a dinosaur look real on TV, but you can typically tell like the cut scenes between, okay, here's Bob, and then they've got some other guy just stepping in real quick and
Doing a backflip. Yeah.
yeah, doing all that stuff, and then all of a sudden Bob comes back into the scene. It's like, okay, and every once in a while, it's enough to pull you from just enjoying whatever you're watching. Um, so that has to be frustrating. That
Honestly, that was frustrating in the past. It was terribly frustrating because I'm like, "Why did they cast her? I'm the one who can actually do it." And then I did talk to a producer friend of mine, and he's like, "You know what? At the end of the day, they're probably just gonna get the stunt woman to do it anyways because the insurance liability to have the actor do it is
yeah,
just too much. So they're better off just hiring anybody for the part and just having a stunt woman do it."
I would imagine that if we're say 80% down the road of having something filmed, and today is Sharon takes a battle axe to somebody and breaks something, that that's got to shut things down for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of yeah. Well, that Sniper Last Stand, that was the actors were just, like, doing all their own fights, so people did sort of get sore and
Yeah,
not hurt, but they were like, "Oh my god." Like, the
yeah.
rest of the shoot, they're like, "I can't move my arm." But, but we had a great time on that one. Mhm.
Do you had mentioned that you went back and you watched this other person who got the role, and you were like, man, why? I think I would do that if I was in your industry and I auditioned for 10 things, got two. I think I'd probably poke back and say, oh, this is I can see why they picked this person, or what the hell was that? I mean, do you
I
do
mean,
that?
there is a certain amount of curiosity surrounding that, especially if it's a role that you cared about and you really, like, worked hard on your audition and you're just like, "Oh, I love this role. I want this so bad." And then sometimes you find out I look on IMDb to see who got it, and I'm looking, "Oh, Uma Thurman got it." I never had a chance. I never had a chance.
There there there's a different pull.
Mhm.
I assume for that, and, um,
I understand how the business works sometimes too, right? Mhm.
we it occasionally I will when I think about, your industry, I think about my one of my side industries, which is politics, and we won't get into politics, except to say that it does feel just as cutthroat as yours must be at times, where for no rhyme or reason, the person that should or shouldn't get it does or doesn't get it, and then we all have to, just kind of deal with that.
Yes.
Um, I think I'm only comfortable doing that because it's a um, a side gig for me. I give you so much credit because I get really nervous around income and feast or famine. It's like I'd rather have, and maybe that's why I didn't take more risks in life, just because I think I would go nuts if I had, you know, 5 or 10 auditions and didn't get them. And that may be like a Tuesday for you because then the next Tuesday you get three and now you're stacked up and then you get to choose.
I know exactly what you're saying, and I can touch on that because I don't think what you just said about for yourself, it being a side gig, so it just it for you, that's not your whole identity, is to be a council member,
Right.
and I think that for an actor, and if you wanna stay healthy mentally, this can't be my everything. And you have to have a very fulfilling, happy life outside of that. So I have incredible family, I have incredible friends, I hike, I do martial arts. I have a very busy and I write scripts. I have a very busy and full life, which being an actor is not my identity. Um, Whereas like being Sharon, being a good, kind person who gives back to my community and my friends, and if someone needs help, I'm going to be the first person that comes to
Yeah.
help them. That is where I find my identity, and I think to that point, I I don't get too disappointed. I've had a couple disappointments in my career where I definitely was like, like crying.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend was like, what's I don't understand how this feeling works for you. He's like, how this is a terrible job you have, the highs and the lows, my God. And I'm like, no, no, no. I'm like, it's just once in a while when something really big. Like I was like one person away from working with Brad Pitt. And I was like, I
Oh,
always
man.
worked with Brad Pitt. And I was like, but then it all that doesn't happen very often. That was a few years ago. I've stayed pretty mentally healthy since.
Yeah, I got that night, I think you're absolved of, "I'm just gonna
Mhm.
let the feelings
Yeah.
feel here for a little bit," because,
Mhm.
um, are are there any, and I don't want to, because again, I see you as so much more, but there's a lot of question because I don't know anything about that industry. Um, sometimes whatever makes the news, that again, it's a cutthroat place. And um, have you found that in the all the different productions that you've worked on, which it is a ton, that people have been supportive? Or do you find that sometimes there are sometimes where you go in and it's rough and you're just getting through and you're happy to be done with it? Or has your experience been pretty positive?
Mine's been very positive. And ever since COVID, you don't see anybody anymore. You're doing all your auditions in your living room. So I there's nobody to be rude to or
Okay.
to be like nobody in the waiting room that's going to be rude to me or anything like that because I'm just on my own. But even before that, all the ladies that were in my category, we'd go to the audition, we're all sitting in the same room and everybody was so supportive and like friendly and like, "Hey,
Well,
how's things? How's your
that that
mom?"
that makes me
Mhm.
feel good, because like I said, there's a lot of times when in the political world, um, people forget that they seem to forget the humanity of it all. It's like,
Mhm.
look, man, I'm just trying to, pave a road and put a park in, and that's about the extent of it. But people want to
Oh,
assign different, motives to you, and that can be rough.
for sure. I mean, I definitely feel for you in your position because I think it's the same for police officers, people that are in politics. They're just humans trying to do a job, and I think people put a lot on that sometimes, and uh, and everyone's just human beings trying to make their own way, and not everybody has an ulterior motive.
Yes. I've got some of your credits up here, and this is where I I feel bad, because I'm looking, I was like, "Oh, I don't know that I've ever watched that." And not that you can't possibly watch everything all your friends are in and all that, that, but, one I will take note of. Occasionally, I will find a show that it's a binge watch show. I love finding shows that have, like, 1 or 2 seasons in it already, because then I know I'm not, getting invested in something, and then
It's over.
it's over, and now I gotta find something else. Um, my one of my current binge watch shows is Fire Country,
Mm.
and I so wanted more of you in that, because I see where they then went with that. And do you go back and watch yourself and think, "Oh, we could have done this, we could have done that," or
Yes,
yeah.
and that particular role was supposed to be recurring because they were gonna spend more time with the
Yeah.
women's camp, and then they took the storyline a different way, so then my
And
character
and
didn't come
and it
back.
was, because watching it now,
Mhm.
it's been out for a couple years.
Mhm.
I didn't know, so I just started. I caught up a couple weeks ago. I finally caught up, and I was like, "Oh, there's no more." Oh, it's because the new one's coming out. But I could tell that, um, for that particular character, that it was a setup. You could tell it was wanting to go somewhere, and then it didn't. Does does that prep ever kick you in the gut, where it's like, okay, I mean, clearly, watching it, I'm a rube watching this. I was like, I could tell this is going somewhere. but you're in that industry, so I'm sure as you're reading it, you're like, "Oh, I can see where they may wanna take this," and then they're like, "Yeah, we're making a left-hand turn, and thanks."
Right. Yep, that happens.
Yeah.
That's happened to me on a few shows, but then the other, example has happened where I'm only supposed to show up and do 1 episode, and then suddenly I do 13 because and Stargate Atlantis was exactly one of those things. I was just supposed to do like do 1 episode, and they liked what I did, so they called me back, and I just kept coming back. And that's happened on a few shows. Few shows. So my friends are very supportive, and they're like, "Oh, well, once you show up, people like you, and they want to have you back." And I'm like, "Well, I hope that's the case most of the time." Mhm.
Hopefully, that gets contagious and
Mhm.
more people
Mhm.
say that. Um, there was, again, I Googled you. If you're ever bored, I don't know, I Googled myself, and I wasn't wild about what came out of it, only because, I'm in newspaper articles all the time, and it's like, there's have you ever Googled yourself? And the second, I think this was just when I typed it in, I was like, "Well, I'm gonna take, 1, 2, 3, I'm gonna go down there." Um, and Rotten Tomatoes said, you were a, statuesque Canadian actress. What when you hear that about yourself, what does that mean to you?
Uh, Muscular. So that's okay. I don't mind that because I am quite muscular. And when I was younger, when you're younger, you even have more muscle tone. You do start to lose it as you get older, even no matter how much you work out, it just starts to go away. But I was very muscular when I was younger, and I think that also made it harder for me to have more range. I wasn't going to play the sweet girlfriend because I was sometimes more like muscular than the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where the word statuesque comes from, and I don't mind that at all. But I have Googled myself, and sometimes the photos that show up, I'm like, oh God. I'm like, what a horrible photo. Why would that even be like floating around on the internet? Wouldn't people want something nicer? I
You
don't
you would
know.
think somebody in a back room
Yeah.
of Google somewhere would be like, "No, that's
Mhm.
not fine. We'll move that aside, and we'll put the other
Yeah.
one up."
The little
Um,
Google elves. The Google fairies, they should know
yes.
better.
Okay, so statuesque means a muscular build, fit, athletic. As you were saying that, I never thought of those words. Forgive me if I'm putting two things here that my first thought was that sounds like in real estate when you're like, oh, this is a fixer upper, and oh, lots of old time charm is like, well, I know what that means, and
Ah.
so there must be an entire vocabulary for your industry that I know nothing about, and maybe the general public doesn't know that when they see those type of words that they're um I don't even know what you'd call them.
Well, I did have a director once say, "Yes, I'm so glad we cast you because I needed a really sturdy woman for this part." I was like
Now
I
that
was
sounds
like,
awful. That sounds because
"A
when
sturdy woman?" I actually was like, "A sturdy woman?" And he's like, "Well, you know what I mean? I mean, like, strong." I
honestly,
was like,
I
"It's just a
my
funny
first
word."
yeah,
Yeah.
my first thought is if I this is why I'm not in it. If I wanted a sturdy woman, I'm thinking of like this like big hulking German woman that just big boned, and that's what I think of when I think of sturdy. Sturdy has never crossed my mind when thinking of Sharon Taylor, and I don't mean that in a I don't know
Right.
if I mean that in a good way or a bad way at this point, so maybe we'll just move on from that, but,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
sturdy,
What do
wow.
people call you? What do people call that? You ever heard yourself described?
Yeah, most of the time just in negative terms, more personality based.
Oh, rude.
Yeah, I know, right? No, in terms of a physical appearance, I don't know that I've maybe maybe when I put this out here and when people get to minute 29 or so, maybe they'll they'll comment. I don't know that I've ever had someone say, "Oh, Bob's a whatever." I will throw tall, dark, and handsome out there. But aside from that, I mean, what are you gonna
I'll
do?
use that from now
Yeah,
moving
that's
forward.
that's
Don't
that's
worry.
good.
I got you.
I mean, what are you gonna do with a 6'2" frame, 270 some odd pounds, and dad bod? That's what I'm doing. I had, thankfully now I have Liam, so it fits. Before I just, I don't know,
Yeah.
sadness and broken dreams is what got me this far. Now I've got Liam.
So you've earned the dad bod.
I have. It is yes. I have earned it. Um, there was as I'm reading here. You had an interview with Medium, and you talked about mental health and authenticity. Now, I will say this: as I Googled this stuff, uh, I don't know if this was something that you did yesterday or if you. Oh, yeah, I remember that. That was 7 years ago. But you your profession, I think you were talking about how sometimes your profession the praises and sometimes it condones talks of mental health and authenticity. I find you to be very authentic. If I think based on your social media and then the conversations that we have had offline, it's one and the same. Who you are, that's who you get. Uh, do you find that as you go and you're working with these other people that a lot of times that is the case, or do you find that okay, that's all we need? And for those
Yeah,
of you
no.
listening, she's shaking her head because
Again, that
finding that
again, that
authenticity.
yeah, and just being happy with who you are as a person. And again, that's circling back to what I said before is just trying being happy in all aspects of your life, health, family, love, everything, relationships. And it's easier to be it just makes life so much easier when you are authentic and I get it. Like I've gone through life pretty unscathed. I have a very lovely family background, but and there's lots of people that don't have that. And so because of those things that have happened to them, they have so much trauma and things that they're working through that they're having, trouble finding their own identity or being authentic. But I can say to those people, the minute you do drop all the masks and you just become your authentic self, it's so freeing. It's so freeing. And one of the best compliments I've ever gotten from people, and like you just now, and I've had other people say that before too. They say you're the same person everywhere you go. You're the same when you talk to your best friend. You're the same when you talk to strangers. You're the same when you talk at work. You're just always the same. And I'm like, because what you see is what you get.
I would have to imagine that for those folks going through some of that stuff, that your industry would, my estimation would be almost dangerous in that if I'm trying to figure out who I am, I now live in a world where I am other people all the time. And so who am I? And so maybe this is just
Yes.
a cathartic question to
No,
have.
people I
Yeah.
have conversations with some of my actor friends about that who have had, traumatic upbringings, and they said that they were better actors when they were in pain. And as soon as they went to therapy and dealt with all their pain and their childhood trauma, they felt as though they weren't carrying that into their performances anymore, so they were playing less interesting, dramatic, painful characters. So
Hmm.
I don't know how that works. You have to be able to perhaps still access it, but then shut it off
Yeah.
when
Put
you need
it that way.
to.
That's
Yeah, that would be
tough.
up to each person, I think.
Yeah. I that would be tough. One of the things that I'm looking to do through this podcast, as I've been talking with some folks, is I'm looking to get together. I think there is an epidemic, whatever you want to call it, of men's mental health that just isn't being addressed for whatever reason. Um, because we're expected to be all things at once. Be a male from the 1950s, but then only sometimes. And you need to know when you need to turn that off and be a male from like 2012. But also not when we don't want that. Know when to flip back and forth. What are those
Mhm.
expectations? And I was looking to get just a group of men together as a roundtable to address some of those mental health. because it's hard going into any job, acting, the engineering work I do, and your mind is everywhere. And so, cheers to us temporarily being well adjusted, I suppose.
We're all a work in progress. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And so I say, I throw the word not flippantly around, but I say therapy a lot. So I'll go get tattoos. I'll say, oh, that was therapy. I'll go to a concert and say, oh, that was therapy. Um, is yeah, concerts, tattoos, whatever makes me feel good. I say at that time it's therapy. And you don't have to answer this question, but have you found that you've ever been in a spot where it's like, hey, I've taken on these roles and it's kind of a mind game, and so I maybe want to talk to people after that, or are you pretty good about, hey, I'm snapping right back into reality and going to this?
I can always snap back, and I've and if you do look at a lot of the characters I've played, I play police officers and doctors and lawyers, so I'm not playing, the abused housewife, things like that. I just don't play that, so
Yeah,
I haven't had that experience, so I can't really speak to that, but I think that if I were to, um, I feel like I'd be able to snap back and, compartmentalize. Yeah.
I compartmentalizing, that is, I also have to, and I think this is why I don't know that I would be a good actor at all, because I can do it in some settings, but how, and maybe this is when they when you went to university and they taught you these things, and I just didn't go to, good actor 101. I don't know what you want to call it, but you're driving to set. Eh, you got cut off, you're mad, you're pissed, you had you're not feeling good, all these things, and then they're like, housewife, go.
Right,
Is
right.
that learned compartmentalization that you've gotten better at over time, or is that something that actors, you kind of need to know how to do that from the start?
Some people have to learn it. I For myself, it's always been within me, and I think that's because of my shyness when I was younger, whereas that it was always just skating under the feelings and the sensations, and what I wanna say is often just, like, skating right underneath the surface, and I hold it in, and then when they say action, I can just let it out.
I You had, there was another podcast that, because again, I tried to do well by you because I wanted to make sure that,
"Thanks, buddy." Yeah.
yeah. You had, speaking about, different jobs, and you talked about how difficult acting, can be at times. Um, but that the idea of, and I think you used the word, soul crushing. Now, the problem with podcasts, now that we say this, it's out there and forever, and things and feelings change. So I'm not tying you to
Mhm.
that, but you had said that, that idea for you and your personality for a 9 to 5 job, that would just be so soul crushing
It
to
would, I can still
work
say
in.
that, yeah, I just couldn't, no. I'm a wilderness lady, I like to be in the woods, I like to be on a boat, I like to be around animals, I couldn't sit at a desk, I would have to figure out something else to do with my life. I actually did do that when I graduated from university. I got a job at a law firm, and I worked for 8 years full-time at a desk.
Ooh,
And I did theater at night, and I had a theater company with my friends, and we would write and produce and do things in the night. So I still had a day job where I could pay my bills and survive, and I was happy because I had my creative outlet at night. But then you can only do that for so long, and then you're like, I can't sit here at this desk anymore. Mm.
so my day job, I have so many different hats, but my day job is, um, I work for the state of Indiana. I'm an engineer with the pipeline group, and um, and I'm not saying anything that they'll be surprised with. I love the job because it provides, a roof over my head. I've dug ditch. I've done all these things, so that's like what I know. Um, Liam has a very expensive lifestyle, so I got to keep that up for
Oh,
him.
yeah, all the activities and things,
Yes,
yeah.
but in terms of fulfillment, I get that from, doing politics and going out and helping people and being in the community and doing stuff like this.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, that's exactly why I could sit at that desk for 8 years because I still had martial arts and theater at night. If I didn't have those 2 things, I would be like, out of my mind. It
yeah,
wouldn't have lasted as long.
occasionally people ask because they'll say it's like, you look like a caged tiger. If I'm really into work for a long time, and it's like I need to get out, I need to be flexible, and so the question is, at some point in time, are you going to give that up? And I don't know. Maybe at some point.
Nah. Whenever you'll know in your heart. It'll tell
Yes.
you.
So you said you are a person of the wilderness. You go to some of the most beautiful places, and I don't know if that's just Canada, which by the way, I'm in America. You're in Canada. I still love you. I don't
Thank you.
evidently we're
Me too.
advantage now.
I still love my Americans
I
too.
don't know.
Mhm.
Kind of odd. Um, so you like to go out and you like to, I see you have, I think you either have a motorcycle or you rent one, you go out a lot and you do that.
Yeah, I do. I have a Harley Sportster.
Oh, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would need like a fat boy or something 'cause
Right? No. Well, we have me and my group of friends that we ride with, I joke, I call ourselves like did you ever see the show Sons of Anarchy?
yeah.
The motorcycle show? I call us like their jackets all said SOA, and I'm like, "We're SOA, but we're like suburbanites of anarchy."
Yes.
So,
Yes, swinging
mm.
through and getting a latte or something, badass on a bike.
Right? Right. We
That'll
rode our motorcycles to the panini shop.
oh,
Yeah.
mm, 275, that's how you get there.
Yeah.
Um, so that's something that you do on your own that seems to recharge you.
For sure, yeah. Which is
Have
funny because my agent's like, "I don't know if you should brag about being on a motorcycle that much because producers don't like that."
yeah, I think,
I was like, "Oh, yeah, yeah."
sports, athletes, I think always get in trouble for being on a motorcycle because,
Oh, yeah, and
that's
skiing and
that
stuff, yeah.
yeah.
They still they still do it anyways. Actors too, if you're the lead of a show, you sign a contract saying that you're not gonna ride motorcycles or go skiing or go skydiving or scuba diving or anything, and then I'll be, like, on Instagram and I can see the person, I'm like, "They just went skydiving."
Yeah.
But, oh well, yeah.
Have you ever done skydiving?
No, and I would never, not interested at all. Have you?
No, I have a fear of heights. Like,
Mm,
I don't do well on a stepladder. And, I like to, if I'm gonna play, "Oh, I'm big man," I can be big man with my feet on the ground. Um, and as an odd tie-in with that, that's how I got to do, like, underground pipe work. This
mm,
was 20 something years ago when I was deciding what to do with myself, and I was at a utility company, and they kind of more or less, there's a long story behind it, but it was more or less, "What do you wanna do?" And they had a power pole, and I knew that, linemen and electricians and those engineers that did that, they did pretty well in life. And it's like a fish story. Every time I tell it, I go higher up the pole, but I climbed the pole. I but I say I got halfway up. I don't know that I actually did get halfway up. And I said, no, I want to be an underground guy because I can't do heights. Um, there's a reel in my algorithm now of somebody jumping out of a plane. I get nervous watching it on my phone.
okay.
I can't do heights.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so many other things that can go wrong. Why would you put yourself in that position in the first place?
Yeah, and then there's some people that say, "Oh, well, it doesn't, you only feel like you're falling the last little bit because then you can see the ground coming and your brain and your eyes are tricked. But when you first go out, your eyes don't have anything to fixate on, so you don't necessarily know that you're falling."
I actually didn't know that, but that makes sense.
And I thought,
That would make sense.
"Ah, bullshit." I just I would know if I'm at, 2,500 feet and I jump out of a plane, and I would know that I'm falling. So that
Yeah. Well, even I think of myself as being a pretty brave person, doing martial arts and stunts and motorcycles and things like that. But I was with friends and family at a lake last summer, and everybody was jumping off this cliff. And I can stand on the edge of the cliff and look down, no problem, and not feel worried. And when I was in the water, I was like, that doesn't look that high. I'll jump off because the kids were doing it, everybody was doing it, and then I got up there and I looked down and I was like, I am not doing this.
yeah.
I'm like, I'm climbing back down. My 11-year-old nephew was like, come on, I'm doing it. I'm like, I don't care. I'm going back down. They're like, it's more dangerous to climb back down than it is to jump. And I'm like, I
Yeah,
don't care.
I've got all
I'm climbing back down.
4 things
Yeah.
on the ground. I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I occasionally so we go to, Disney a lot. Liam loves it. It's still magical for him, and so long as there's magic, I will take him to Disney. We're still huge into Santa, whatever keeps the magic alive for as long as possible, because at some point, the world's gonna kick you in the ass. So until
Yeah.
then, I do
Well,
everything to keep the magic alive.
Disney is a great place to escape for that. I gotta say, I'm a big Disney freak too.
We
Growing up, all the movies, I collected all the VHS tapes, everything. Like I was Disney everything.
I,
So
the VHS tape, I think those
worth something now.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you have them, man, that's like a good retirement plan right there. Um, but he will speaking of your, 11-year-old niece or nephew, I can't remember now,
My
um,
nephew. Mhm.
nephew, occasionally, Liam would be like, "Come on, what are you doing?" It's like, "Dude, you're 9." And he's like, "Come on, get on this roller coaster. Come on." He's an adrenaline junkie, and so he would be
Mhm.
it's not that, he has 0 fear. Um, you say that you're, a black belt in
Karate and kickboxing. Mhm.
I knew there was 2 things there, and, um, so we have him in, they call it, ninja class, and he's been there for a few years. Um, we wanted him to build his confidence, build his strength up. I was never into sports because I didn't think I had that confidence,
Mm.
in him, but so he's doing this ninja class where he's, climbing the rope and doing just everything you could possibly think of, and because of that, he now has 0 fear. He knows how to fall, he knows how to land, and so he would be up there on that cliff saying, "Come on, it's not bad. Just do it." He has no fear,
Mhm.
and,
Mhm.
I think he didn't have fear before then, but at least now he knows how to fall, so, there's
There's
that
something to be
stuff.
said for that. I mean, I'm a huge advocate of martial arts because I believe you can still do it into your, old age if you wanted to. At the martial arts school I train, we have people in their 60s and 70s that are still there doing it. I mean, they can't do it the same as they did when they were 25, but they're still doing it, and they're still out there
Yeah.
and they're still being active. So that's the beautiful thing about martial arts. And
Well, and
like knowing how to fall is important, especially as you age too, right? If you just trip
yes.
over something, you get caught up in your iPhone cord, just knowing how to fall is so important. I did a Hallmark movie in October, and my character had to like kind of faint and crumble to the ground, and which like you see in Sniper and stuff like that, I'm getting picked up and smashed to the
Yeah,
ground, like punched and stuff. So like for me to just be a woman, in a pretty dress that just kind of like faints and falls to the
yeah,
ground, everybody was like, "Are you okay? Are you okay hitting the ground? Are you okay hitting the ground?" I'm like, "I'm fine."
yeah.
I'm like, I just fall to my knees first and then just kind of like
Just
in it. And everybody's like, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Do we need extra mats?" I'm like, "I'm really okay." And in my head, I'm like, they haven't seen any of my other stuff.
no, no, because
Mhm.
falling is especially in this last one, falling was the least of your issues. Um,
Yeah.
uh, that was it was so the sniper movie. I think at some point in time you said it was your biggest fight scene ever,
Yeah.
that you did. That for me, and I don't know, maybe I'm equating this wrong, and you think, well, yeah, that's not exactly how we view it in the industry. But I think, my gosh, so you go to set and you're doing your lines, doing all that stuff, but then you get the day where it's like a biggest fight scene ever. The only thing I can think of is that's got to be like the best field trip ever. Is
It
now
was.
okay, now we get to have fun. And
and I'm just so proud of myself because at no point do they cut away to a stunt woman. Whereas in other shows like Supernatural and stuff like that, my character got thrown out a window on that one Supernatural episode, but I'm not doing that. Although some of my stunt friends were like, "Oh, you could do it. You should just get paid extra and you do it." And I'm like, I don't know if I need to go through a window. And so I got one of my best girlfriends who's a stunt woman. So she did it on my behalf. And they put a neoprene skin colored wetsuit underneath the costume. So she got thrown through the window. And it's that safe breakaway glass.
okay.
But she still, when she went back to her trailer and took off the neoprene wetsuit, she had a piece of glass sticking out of her butt and had to go
Oh,
get stitches. So I was thinking, oh, that still happens, right? So
yeah.
super safe, but there's just always going to be the risk that there's some minor thing. But for the sniper thing, there was nobody but me, and I was pretty happy with that. Yeah.
So I've watched everything you've posted. I have a list, and it's on there. I'm working through my Paramount Plus shows now. Amazon's next. I'm still like 3 or 4 seasons on other stuff on that, and I am so excited for it because again, I know a few folks, just a very few in the industry, and when I watch things, I love, and you'll never know, although I occasionally say it, and these people know, I love cheering you guys on from my TV in Northwest Indiana.
I love that.
love
I
doing
love that.
that.
I mean, if you haven't watched Cross yet on Amazon Prime, that's another show that was pretty wild. It became the #1 show in the world, and that was really cool. It was like #1 in 112 countries at the same moment.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just
I
Yeah,
have
it was pretty exciting.
You can't see it here, but what I'll do is I'll take a snap and I'll send it to you. It literally is. Well, I don't know if I can move this here, only because I don't know if it'll go. I'll jack it.
Yeah.
Nah, it won't go. You can kind of see it
Oh,
there.
yeah, I can
Look
see.
at that. Look at that. Like #2 on the list is Cross. So
Oh, for you to watch next, you mean?
yeah, for me on my list of things, like I want to, that's on my Amazon list is
Mhm.
what I want to watch. You had mentioned Supernatural. There's a group of shows that I've got some friends. My sister is a huge Supernatural fan,
Mm.
and um, I started watching the first season, and as much as I said, boy, I really like watching shows that have some length to them. It's like 14, 15, 16 seasons, and I thought
Yeah,
this is
15. It goes on and on. Like,
just
you gotta be
daunting.
really
This
invested.
is
Yeah.
yeah, and it was also at a time, and I could be wrong, but it feels like a time where they made more episodes per season than they do now. Now it
Correct,
seems
yeah.
like you get, 8, 10, maybe 12 or 13, and then that's a season, and now you gotta wait 2, 3
Mhm.
years to get the next one. A show like Supernatural, they did, 15
20.
seasons, 20 some episodes. I mean,
Yeah,
that has to
20 or
be grueling.
22. Same with Stargate. It was always 20 or 22 episodes. Smallville, 20 or 22 episodes a season. All those shows.
And,
That was how TV worked back then. It just not the same anymore.
so oh, so many good questions. I need a notebook here to write
Mhm.
things here. Um, but I have asterisks next to some of these. So Stargate Atlantis. I'm going to put all of these in a group. Supernatural, Batwoman, Riverdale, Legends of Tomorrow, Smallville, Continuum, Stargate Atlantis. All of these type shows, I feel like maybe, and some of them are somewhat new. They just don't make TV like that anymore. Now it's set up a different way. As a viewer, it
Mhm.
just feels that way. I don't know that I can describe it, um, other
I
than
can
to
speak to
say
that because I believe that
that's
our
what I'm
attention
looking for.
spans have just gotten so much shorter the way we're programmed now with social media and the way the news, the world around us, and the amount of information that's coming at us at all times. People don't have the attention span to sit down and commit themselves to 20 episodes, especially if there's a through line in all 20
Yes.
episodes. There, it's very nowadays people want formulaic. Our brains want comfort. Our brains want to know what to expect. So a lot you find people rewatching shows over and over because there's a comfort to that. You know what
Yeah.
happens next. You've had a stressful day at work. You're seeing on the news all these horrible things that are happening. So you need that. Your brain needs that break. And so nowadays, like I do write. So when I have pitched TV shows that I'm, trying to get off the ground, everybody says it has to be formulaic, where someone can just turn on one episode, they can catch it, they know what the story is, they don't have to commit to 20 episodes. So it's just a quick formula, 1 hour, that's it. Yeah, we need that kind of comfort for our brains in this crazy world right now.
Do you feel like as an actor in this industry, do you find it which one was better for the workers in that industry? I mean, clearly, if you're doing
Well,
20 some episodes, you're there for a long time, so there's length to that. But
it's a burn. The crew gets burned. The actors are not there every day, so it's not, except for the number one character, and
Mhm.
those actors usually do get quite burnt out. But and the crew is walking zombies by the end of the 20th episode, because that's like a 9-10 month shoot for those crew
Oh
people,
yeah,
and you're working 14 hours a day, most of them. They're not seeing their families, their home lives are falling apart. So I
well,
feel like even Riverdale just stopped filming, but they were still doing 20 episodes, and I have a few friends that were on that crew, and they were burnt out, exhausted by the end of it. Sometimes they'd be like, I don't know if I can go back next season as a crew member, because I'm fried. Mhm.
well, and I think now, what my estimation would be that um, in doing these shorter, bits, that it gives you the opportunity to do more rather than hey, I am the principal actor on this show that is 20 episodes and it's 10 months, and so my I don't know if hiatus is the right word, but that time where between I'm doing season 1, season 2, I have to rejuvenate there. Now if you're doing something, you can, I assume, if you wanted to, you
Yeah, you
can do
can
all
do
sorts
more
of things.
projects, I would say that is beneficial for the lead characters, but for the supporting cast, that's not always beneficial, because suddenly
Okay.
you're like, "Oh, instead of getting 13 episodes out of 20 for that season, now you get 3 episodes out of
Yeah.
8." Yeah. So that's a different paycheck.
Certainly, certainly.
Yeah.
There is so that group of shows that I just listed off. Um,
Mhm.
those were always my comfort type shows, because you could turn it on, you could get invested in a storyline, but also if it's your second time through, it can be on as background noise, but you get invested with some of these folks.
Mhm.
It seems like now there is a move towards bringing back certain things um from that era. So I mean, I don't think it would surprise anybody if in 2 years from now they're like, "Hey, we're bringing Smallville back on Netflix for 10 episodes," or
Oh,
any
you
of
mean like
those.
with the same cast, or do you mean
Yes, yeah,
or
it seems like bringing those back. Are there any of those types of shows where um, you've done a handful of them that you're like, yeah, I mean, if you're doing some reunion, reboot, re-envision,
Well, hey, let's
whatever they're
put it
doing.
out there. On Stargate Atlantis, my character was the technician in the control room opening and closing the Stargate. By now, she would be the captain of her own ship. So
I
if
think so. I
so
Let's put that out
so
there
if
in the
any of
ether.
those MGM people are listening, they can.
If anybody's listening.
That's right. You need a female strong captain of the next Stargate ship. Here she is.
And
Yeah,
oh my god, I
but
just wanted to say sturdy.
a sturdy,
If you're looking for
statuesque
a sturdy,
captain.
statuesque captain, my friend
Yes.
Sharon here. Yeah.
Yeah, but they are running reruns of shows like Smallville and stuff like that now over again, because and I think it's on Amazon Prime now, and I think it ran in reruns in Europe and wherever else before, but I actually was working on another set in the fall, and this probably 18-year-old young guy came up to me. He's like, "You were on Smallville," and in my head, I was like, "Wow, you're too young to know Smallville." But
Yeah.
he's into it and he watches it on Amazon Prime or wherever. Yeah.
Well, I think
So
streaming brings new life to a lot of these, you
older
know,
shows. Yeah, yeah.
and older shows. This is like, oh man, I hate that. I hate that because I still,
It's true though. It is.
mm,
Yeah.
when I think older shows, I think something that I don't know, Lone
You're
Ranger.
thinking of like Hill Street Blues and
Yes,
MASH? Yeah.
yes. Oh, I do love a good MASH episode though. But
It's
yeah,
true.
no, and so to have some of these shows that's like, um, but that's where I mean, you never know what's going to pick up steam on streaming now. And I guess I say that not being in the industry, you probably hear inklings of people trying to start projects all the time, I'm assuming.
Mhm.
But yeah, they just come out with, hey, I never watched the show Suits. It's just I hadn't watched it,
Me neither.
but it was on for a number of years, was popular, then it was off, and they said, oh, we're going to bring it back, and they brought it back for a season, I guess.
And
Um,
then it's canceled. It's canceled again now.
yeah, canceled again.
Mhm.
Are there any of those shows, aside from being the the sturdy, statuesque? I hope that if that ever torpedoes any chances of you being the captain of something, I apologize. But
No, I'll
now
actually
I'm
be
laughing.
thanking I'll be thanking you. I'll be like, "I owe Bob for that one."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are there any of those that you would? I guess as a two party that you would like to revisit. And is it because you like the character, or was it because, hey, I'm spending all this time with this, um, the crew, the cast, and you got to develop some friendships there. So maybe it's not so
Mhm.
much that, hey, I want to go play this person that I played on this show. It was, that'd be fun to hang out with those people again.
Oh, that happens a lot where
Yeah.
befriend people because I end up working in other cities, and
Hmm.
then you have nothing to do but hang out with your castmates on your days off or on the weekend. It's like, "You wanna go for lunch? Great. Wanna go for a hike? Great. Wanna go sit by the lake? Great." And so then you're like, "Oh, these are my new friends."
Yeah, these are my new friends.
And then you never see them again because you all disperse back to different cities later.
We will
Mhm.
have, and this is odd that I've been able to tie in campaigns and politics with acting. It's odd, but we'll have the same thing with campaigns. So campaigns are such where it's really the last 6 months right before an election that everybody's kind of getting together and you're in the trenches with people, and it is that it's the we just had a day that kicked our ass. It's 2 in the
Mhm.
morning and we're exhausted. And can we just like shame eat some cheeseburgers in the back of the car? And then you just get to know people that way.
It's a
Um,
bonding thing.
it is
Mhm.
trauma bonding
Tra
in a way
trauma bonding. But you know
that,
what I call it? I call it the post-show blues, and
oh,
I've called it that ever since doing theater when same thing, you're doing a theater show with all these people for 2 months, you're
mhm,
rehearsing and then putting on shows every night, and then when it's over, you don't see them anymore, and so you're like,
yeah,
"Oh, I have the post-show blues," but that can be said for whatever industry you work in. If you
yeah.
have, like, you form these relationships with people and then it's gone, so it's yeah, the post-show
And
blues.
it's odd because in that moment, it feels like, well, this is the best person I've ever known here in this moment here,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
very situation specific. And then, in my case, the election would be over, and then everybody disperses. And every once in a while, it's so nice because if there was 5 or 6 people, one will come back around, and you meet them. And uh, I have some of those folks in my life that I've worked with that we've had that a couple times now where we've gone back, and the trust that you just have with those people, that even if you don't see them all the time, it's like we're on the same, we come from the same place. I know you, you know me.
Yes.
And um that has
Yeah.
to be uh fantastic. I have a couple more questions here, and I don't want to take up all of your time because I think before we started here, for those that aren't, we chatted for a little bit before. I think you called me chatty, and I was like, yeah, I'm a chatty guy. But I do want to be mindful of your time. A couple just one-off questions. I put out as I'm talking with folks to say, hey, do you want to come on? We're just gonna, honestly shoot the shit for an hour, whatever, and but is there things you want to talk about, don't want to talk about, things you want to promote? One of the questions that I have to ask is, what's your name? And I mean that in a way where it's like, there are some people that have stage names, or some people that I go by one thing, but this is my name. And so I'm curious as to, and you didn't put anything on there because you're Sharon. I know you're Sharon is out there. Um, but I know when you get into your industry, at times you have to change your name, or have a station in there. And I would think, and I could be totally wrong with this, is I would think that Sharon Taylor is somewhat common. Like, I don't know how many Bob Starkeys there
It's
are out
super
there.
common. No,
And
I've
so
never changed my name. I was like, I was actually surprised my parents named me something so generic. And when I went to go vote, like in Canada election, and you go to the voting center, and I'm like, I show my ID, Sharon Taylor, and there was like 6 Sharon Taylors just in my city, and I was like, oh,
oh.
a very generic name. But to that point, I don't mind it because I'm freaking freaked out of identity theft. So I'm like, oh, there's so many Sharon Taylors. They're gonna just
Yeah, they'll
pick a
pick
different
another
one.
one. Have
Yeah.
you ever thought about that, and I'm sure, not necessarily now, but as you were getting into it, it's like, is my identity that, people will then recognize me as Sharon Taylor, or do I wanna be, something else, or did it?
I actually couldn't care less because for me, I'm not in it to be famous.
Yeah.
Like even if nobody knew my name, I'd be fine with that too. As long as I just get to consistently work and do what I love, I'm fine.
If
Mhm.
and you don't have to answer this next question here, because for some reason, there's certain questions, when, someone says, they'll come to me, "Well, how much do you make doing this?" I'm not asking that question, but the question is, have you ever gotten to a spot where it's like, um, well, when I need to transition to do something else for income, because everybody needs a roof over your head, the lights on, cell phone bill, you just need that stuff. Um,
Mhm.
have you thought about, um, what that looks like? I mean, clearly you're not going to go back into a 9 to 5 job, but I mean, what does that look like when it's like, hey, and I guess I want to be not mindful of how I,
No, I
I
can tell
word
you
it.
right now, it's for me, it's
Yeah,
martial arts. It's martial arts. I still teach the odd classes when my, friends need someone to cover their classes and
yeah.
stuff like that because I love it. So, I mean, if I had to, I'd just go back being a full-time martial arts instructor because at
Now,
least I'm with all the students and the fun and the energy and
oh, I
mhm.
gotta imagine that's gotta be great too, just that
Mhm.
level of enthusiasm. Um, do you well, let me see
But
here.
to that point about, like about, income, you obviously, the American shows pay better than the Canadian shows. I've been in situations before where, I got offered that part on, Altered Carbon, which was a Netflix
Mhm.
show, and at the same time, I got offered 10 episodes of a Canadian show that was a much more interesting character. Like, it was a
Okay.
much more interesting character. And then Altered Carbon, I was literally the girlfriend of one of the main characters. So, not as interesting. But, I chose the 5-episode Altered Carbon because the paycheck was that much of a difference than the 10-episode Canadian show. So,
A
yeah.
a lot of the shows that I had mentioned in my little word bubble there,
Mhm.
I think a lot of them were filmed in Canada. I think,
Yeah.
um
They're American shows, but filmed here.
um, there is, as a side note, I think next year we're going to, my sister's, kinda planning it with my dad. We wanna take either an Alaskan cruise or a Hawaiian cruise. Oddly enough, each of them leave out of Vancouver.
Yeah.
And so I told him, I said, "I wanna go, like, 1 or 2 days before, because all of my comfort shows I've watched, they've all been filmed out there." Now, I don't know what I'd go look at there, but it's like, man, there's gotta
I
be some
mean,
on-site locations that's like, "I remember that, and it was worth a
if
drive."
you go into the North Shore Mountains, then you're gonna see pretty much where all the X-Files and
Yeah,
every
where
type
all
of
of it
show
was
in
done.
the woods, all of it. Yeah, but I mean, it's stunning. There's beautiful trails, and you go into up into North Vancouver, Lynn Valley, and there's a suspension bridge, and there's the Capilano suspension bridge, and the other section of North Van. There's beautiful, beautiful things to see here.
So, since everything is filmed in a I have 0
Studio or
yeah,
yeah.
um, but I mean, with all of the people there, do you often find that, do people then stay there, because that's where the work is, and so you can just, randomly befriend these folks that you work with that you can,
Yeah, I mean,
still see them or
I will show up on a film set here for something, and a crew member will be like, "Sharon," I'm like, "Oh my god, we worked together 12 years ago on Stargate,"
Yeah.
and we were besties back then
Oh,
when we
yeah.
worked together all the time, like the costume ladies or something, they're like constantly touching you and talking to you, and the
Yeah.
hair and makeup ladies, they're like your best friend during that whole time of
Well, and you're gonna be
shooting, and
close when
then
someone is this close to you
yeah,
all
and
the time.
you're having like life conversations and
Yeah.
personal conversations with those people. So it's great to run into them over and over again in Vancouver. And also the fact that you don't have to go anywhere to audition. I can audition for stuff in Indiana in my living room.
Yeah.
So I don't have to go anywhere. It's kind of nice.
That's awesome.
Hmm.
I want to, because, we've been chatting for a while now, and, so I wanna wrap up here with you. Not that I want to, we could probably talk
I know
for,
you and I could just talk forever, but
hours and hours, but like I said, I do
mhm.
wanna be mindful of your time, and I do appreciate you coming on here. I had, on my questionnaire, I said, "Hey, I wanna ask the Bernard Pivot questions." I wanna
Oh
ask
yeah.
them because I think they're fun. I always enjoyed watching them on Inside the Actors Studio, um, because when people were just honest, when it was, just a, word association, sky blue, water wet, I always found that there were some really interesting answers and that you could get to know people that way. So, on the questionnaire I had asked, I said, "Do you mind if I ask these?" Everybody says, "Fine." But occasionally, a sub question I have is that, "Are you gonna look them up beforehand and give me church answers?" And a couple people do, and it's like, "Oh, that's not the point. That's not as fun." So, I'm going to ask these questions, and then we'll wrap up.
I
And
have never looked them up, but I've watched Inside the Actors Studio a lot, so I have an idea of what you're gonna
so
ask
it
me about.
and he had his own, like, version of them.
Yes.
And so the Bernard Pivot, this was the 60s and 70s. And, one of the questions, is a very 1960s, 1970s question. And so I'm clearly not asking anybody to incriminate themselves, but, um, well, that's question 3, and we'll get to it. So I'm gonna
Sure,
start
sure.
in on this. What is your favorite word?
I don't have one. I guess I say literally a lot, which is such a Valley Girl thing to say, but I don't think I have
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, that's Valley Girl. I don't know what to tell
Yeah.
you. That is
I would think
literally
we should go back and watch this conversation and see how many times I said it. I don't know. Maybe I controlled myself.
maybe, we'll see.
Mhm.
I say,
Mhm.
on this a lot. When I go back
Oh.
through and do some just post editing, because every once in a while there's, like, some technical issues or there's a glitch, and I
Mhm.
don't edit out content, but, I
I think for the listener, it is nice to get rid of those little things.
yes, it is. So there's this AI program out there that will find every time that I say that, and it will just magically disappear.
What?
I know, right?
That is
So,
very cool.
what is your least favorite word?
Uh, I don't think I have one of those either. I'm so boring. I don't have one.
Fair enough.
Yeah, nothing bugs me really.
So here's no need to self-incriminate, but I take it as a broader meaning. What is your favorite feel-good drug?
Oh, I mean, I love a good glass of wine, let's be honest. I will happily just with my girlfriends, we have some of the best laughs to it's 20 years of friendship, but it's also like a little bit of wine
It's
helps
also
with the
the
laughter.
yeah,
Mhm.
it's also a couple bottles stacked like soldiers in the back. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I gotcha, I gotcha.
Mm.
If you were to be reincarnated, you could be anything else, what would you be?
Mhm. I would be a man.
I'm having a good time as one.
Great.
I
I'm just curious, I guess, to see what that existence would be like. Mhm.
well, coming from a guy who said, "I need to do a podcast on mental health for men," sometimes it can be challenging.
I'm
Um,
sure, yeah.
I, uh, I I think it would be interesting to see the eyes, through the lens of a woman, just to see how people then interact with me, and what that difference would be. Um, again, we said 6'2", 270, 80 pounds. Not patting myself on the back, but I'm the council president. They always said with George Washington, one of the reasons why he was um, who he ended up being was because he was 6'6", and when you're the tallest guy in the room, everybody looks at you. And so I'm just used to, figuring out how to walk into a room and own that. So I think that would be interesting, I suppose, to, um,
See if you
not
can
be,
transfer that type
yeah,
of, ownership into a woman's body.
yeah,
Mhm.
and into something else that isn't so sturdy.
Intimidating. Yeah. Ah, ah.
Next one. What noise or sound do you hate?
I hate the leaf blowers. Oh my gosh, my neighborhood, there's all sorts of different apartment buildings, and one day that apartment building is doing the leaf blowing, the next day it's that one, and the next day it's that one. It's like, "Oh, I hate it." Mm.
Do you have any pets? This is not a question, but
No, I haven't. I
no?
used to have a cat, but he died, and I cried a lot, and now I'm okay. But
Oh,
I loved him so much. Mhm.
that's awful.
Mhm.
What noise or sound do you love?
I love laughter. I love music with a sturdy beat. So so that it makes me feel like moving. I love also the sound of when my boxing glove hits the pad and it makes that slap sound. Like if you
Ooh,
there's like a certain way if you hit it and it like goes pop, snap. And then there's other ways it goes burn and you don't hear anything. But that's I love that sound when you hit the pads and it goes snap.
wow. Hmm. I wouldn't know that noise. I do. There is a noise that um, when Liam is on the tumble track,
Mm.
when he lands just right, there's
Oh,
a warble noise.
yeah,
Yeah, that it kind of ripples through the tumble
mhm.
track. It's like, I
It
don't even
does
have to be
because you can
watching. I
mhm,
can hear it. Oh, I know he stuck it. So that's kind of cool.
love that.
What is your favorite curse word?
I say fuck. Yeah,
Oh, all the time, all the
I
time,
do. I'll be like, "What the fuck?" Yeah.
all the
And
time.
sometimes I do it accidentally on set when my character's like, "What?" It'll just sort of slip out. I'll just keep going with it and be like, "What the fuck?" And they're like, "You can't do the fa."
Yeah, I
Yeah.
when I started on live radio, I have a terrible
Mm.
truckers, sailors, whatever you wanna call it. I I tell Liam there are no bad words, just adult words. So,
That's great
we'll
advice.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, because
And
there just
and
is.
then when people say, "Oh, people that use swear words can't think of something more educated in
Yeah,
their
yeah,
vocabulary to use instead." I
mm,
think, "No, that's
yeah,
not true. I'm way
yeah.
smarter than some of these other people, and I think I
Yeah,
can say it."
yeah, and it's
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
just colorful. It's just
Yeah.
colorful. But I had to learn not to because, um,
Yeah,
somebody will,
you're on radio.
Paul or somebody was like, "Yeah, that shit,"
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I had to.
Oh, yeah, I teach martial arts classes, as I was saying at times, and I put on Spotify playlists, and I have to make sure there's no swear words in some
Oh,
of the
yeah.
songs that get you really pumped, they have the
Yeah,
"fuck" in it.
yeah.
And I sometimes didn't realize there was an E beside the song when I pressed play, and it's like, "What the fuck?" And I'm like, "Ah! Quickly run over,"
Yeah,
because there's parents sitting down there watching their
yes.
kids' classes on the other floor.
The
Yeah.
amount of times that I'll be driving and I'll be, music is so, we love music. Liam didn't speak until he was like 4 and a half years old. And so he feels music. It's odd. So we'll be cramming out in the car. We'll be driving and you'll see me, I'll turn the volume down for the word and then I'll turn it back up because But he's
It's like you're scratching, you're the DJ, scratch,
Yeah,
scratch,
I
scratching the
know, right?
stereo. They're
Yeah,
like, yeah.
as I'm driving from, school to McDonald's or something like that, here I'm Mr. DJ in the car.
Yeah.
Couple more questions. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Oh, I think I would have liked to have been a doctor and helping people. Mhm. But it takes a certain amount of I have no problem with blood, I have no problem with death. I don't think I can't wrap my head around the biology stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
I got a C in biology in high school, so yeah.
Yeah, I'm so far past school that I don't like to think about what I did, but I was a BC student all the time. I just, I don't know.
Well, that's
I
just
was
it. I
I
was
was that type
straight
of
A's
test
except
taker.
for yeah.
I
Say that again?
I was gonna say I was that type of test taker that if I knew I needed 70% to pass, and I knew that I got 70% of the questions right on the thing, I'd be like, "Okay, I'm done." Because in my mind, my time was better spent elsewhere.
Right, fair. I
You
do know
know,
people like that also, yes. And I was an A student except for math and science. That was where my brain didn't
just
work as well.
yeah, the math wasn't
Mhm,
mathing. So
mhm.
that may lead into our next question here, and your answer of you already did it for 8 years doesn't count. What profession other than your own would you not like to attempt, or
I
is it
wouldn't
just
wanna be a politician.
I
No, that's right, because I
it's
always feel sorry for people politicians. People are like, "I hate that person," or "I hate this person, and this person's horrible." And I'm like, their hands are tied. They're just doing what they
yeah.
can with the laws and the bylaws and all the things that they've got, right? Like, they're
Yeah, and,
yeah.
there are, social media is brutal,
Mhm.
for politicians because we are expected to be Santa Claus all the time, and
And just have money for
yeah,
everything.
I'm a resident, I'm a taxpayer, here's my wish list, I want it done now, and if you can't do it, you're the bad person, and move on. It's like, it doesn't work like that, but,
No,
yeah, you kinda last
no.
question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get to the pearly gates?
You made it!
Yay! Look
No,
at the
yes, right.
surprise.
Yeah, no, 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 I don't think I'll be surprised.
No, no, no. I, um, I wanna thank you so much for taking an hour and 20 some of your day. I know you've probably got a million things to do, and so I appreciate it. I've always appreciated our friendship, and, yeah, that's all I got.
I appreciate it too, my friend. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me too. You're the busy politician dad, so you're probably busier than me right now.
Well, Sharon, thank you very much, and I'll catch you
Yeah, we'll
around.
talk again one day. Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.